Greetings, humans. It is I, Yoda. I'm a bald old wizard guy, because I can't call myself Dungeon Master, because apparently that word is now problematic. Alright, so this, this has gotta be Wizards of the Coast's best media ever. In a long time. The amount of attention Dragons of Stormwick Island is getting, way more than anybody expected over this simple box set beginners thing. Why? Because of these. Now, this is all based upon the assumption that people have seen the 1980s Dungeons and Dragons cartoon, which featured a group of kids who were kidnapped and forced to go on adventures in a mystical fantasy land where they encountered multiple Dungeons and Dragons monsters and plots. It ran for 2 seasons, almost 3, was going into a 4th season, and then it got canceled. So there was no finish. Basically, the plot is this guy, this dude, kidnaps these kids, gives them some wonky magic items, and says, "Go fight my battles for me." And they do. They do, all because he is holding the threat of sending them home over their heads. Do this for me, and I will be able to send them home. Even though at any time he could have sent them home, he just doesn't. He uses them to fight his battles because he doesn't want to confront the situation that he created. And the kids, being kids, of course, like, sure, we'll do it. We'll trollop around this unbelievably dangerous world with no food, no source of income, no heat, just trying to get home. We just want to go home. All right, so in the artwork for Dragons of Stormwick Isle, we have these individuals who look vaguely like the characters from the cartoon, which has led to a bunch of people claiming that they are the characters from the cartoon. We even have an article today from something called Dicebreaker, which is a online news source, claiming that, oh yeah, they're the kids. That's it. This is the official canon for what happened to those kids after the show didn't end. Except, of course, the writer of the show did write a final episode. That episode has been animated. It is on YouTube, and it explains exactly what happened to the kids at the end. Also, Wizards of the Coast has said, no, these are not the kids from the cartoon show. They are an homage to the characters from the cartoon show, but they're not the kids from the cartoon show. Jeremy Crawford has said, no, they're not the kids from the cartoon show. Hasbro has said, no, stop it. They're not the kids from the cartoon show. The writer of the show, Mr. Reeves, has said, no, they're not the kids from the cartoon show. The producer of the show, Mr. Houston, has said, no, they're not the kids from the cartoon show. And finally, the people who actually own the copyright to the show, which is not Wizards of the Coast, it's the other guy, Disney. Disney owns the rights to the Dungeons and Dragons show and the likeness of all the characters. And they have said, no, we own the rights to these characters. They're not the characters from the show. They are an homage. Now, other than, some similarities, most of the ones don't even look like the kids from the show. If you look at the artwork and you look at the figures, the only one that looks exactly like the kid from the show is the wizard. The ranger character looks vaguely, but he's just a ranger with a bow. Then we've got this monk lady jumping around. She looks nothing like the way they dressed her in the show. We've got the paladin, or the cavalier. He looks kind of like the character from the show, except there's, his coat of arms is different and his sword is different. There's no sign of Bobby the Barbarian or Uni the Unicorn in the first set of figures or in much of the art. And there's no sign of the thief. That's been replaced with a cleric who's sort of dressed the same way. Now, you're like, oh, well, but they look exactly like the characters of the show, so obviously Wizards of the Coast is lying. This is all part of some grand deception to milk 80s nostalgia. Well, first off, the show doesn't have that much nostalgia, otherwise it wouldn't have been canceled. And it was a show that was littered with controversy throughout its entire run, for portraying children in danger and portraying horrible settings and death and graves and stuff like that. And why is this male boy have a unicorn following him around when unicorns only normally follow around virgin females and, stuff like that. And, of course, the controversy, he could have sent them home. So really this is a kidnapping. He kidnapped them. So you're saying that, it looks just like them, so they're them. Except, of course, it doesn't look just like them because of how copyright works. Okay, so bare bones, without getting into the unbelievably complex world of copyright and trademarks and who owns what and who can use what and what are public domain and not public domain characters. Okay, in order to not violate a copyright, there has to be at least 3 points of difference between one and the other. As long as there's at least 3 things that are different, you're not violating the copyright. Now, those things can be as simple as a change in hair color, a change in expression, a change in clothing, a change in the way they look, but it has to be enough difference that they don't violate the copyright. Now, there are certain things you can't copyright, like Wizards of the Coast, Hasbro holds the copyright to the word beholder. But you can't copyright the word beholder. You can copyright the word beholder as it relates to the image that we know is the beholder. So if you show the eye thing and the word beholder above it, that's violating Wizards of the Coast copyright over that. But if you say, beauty is in the eye of the beholder, that's not violating because that's a word. Same with Superman. You can't copyright the word Superman, but you can copyright the word as it relates to the image of Superman. So if you have just the word Superman, you're not violating the copyright. If you have the word Superman and underneath that you have something that looks a lot like Kal-El, then you are violating the copyright because DC owns everything that's associated with the image of Superman. You can still have a character exactly like Superman. I mean, Omni-Man is point-for-point Superman. Homelander is point-for-point Superman. Except they look different. And they have different names. And DC can't copyright the power set of Superman's powers. I mean, you can only copyright the imagery. So while these characters might look like the characters from the show, the same way Omni-Man sort of looks like Superman, or Kor the Barbarian looks a lot like Thundar the Barbarian, who looks a lot like Conan the Barbarian. They're not, because there's enough differences, and you can see right here in the picture, one of the main differences, she is dressed differently than the character. The weapon is portrayed differently than the character in the cartoon. They're also older than the characters in the cartoon. Okay? His hair is different. The makeup of the clothing he is wearing is different. And the look of the bow is different. So it's enough to pay homage to the characters without saying they are the characters. Mind you, of course, again, Wizards of the Coast Hasbro doesn't own the copyright to the likeness of the characters or that show. That's owned by Disney. The creator of the show has said no. Jeremy Crawford has said no. Wizards of the Coast has said no. Hasbro has said no. So please let me finally put this to rest because this has gotten ridiculous. No, they're not the kids to the show. Now, the good thing about this is it's attracting a lot of attention to the show. So hopefully everybody who is even somehow, in some way, some form, being affected by this silliness will use this as an excuse to go, hey, I should watch the show again. And maybe we'll get another release of the DVD. And maybe they'll even put the final episode the unofficial episode on it. I would love it if Hasbro did have the rights, because who wouldn't want action figures of the kids? You know? I mean, if they could do like Lightning Collection level of action figures with the kids, that would be awesome. And I'm sure I would want, at least one of Presto, since I kind of look like him. But no, they don't. Otherwise, Wizkids couldn't make the figures for them because Hasbro doesn't own Wizkids. Wizkids is a completely separate company. They have no affiliation with Hasbro whatsoever. That's how they're able to make figures for both Pathfinder and other games. Because that's not theirs. It's Disney's, and Disney doesn't care. So, I'm sorry. I hate to shatter any delusions anybody may have, but no. The kids got off of Stormwick Island, or the land of Dungeons & Dragons, or whatever you want to call it. And the individuals who are portrayed in this module are not the kids from the Dungeons & Dragons cartoon. The end. Now join me next week when I tell you how that sandwich is in fact not the same sandwich as the sandwich from the Sandwich Show. Until then, get off of my island, you damn kids!